Long before forests covered the land and long before mammals learned to dominate the surface of the planet, a segmented form already moved across damp ground and shallow waters. It did not roar. It did not hunt with speed or power. It endured. This was the beginning of the isopod. Isopods belonged to a lineage so old that their ancestors witnessed the planet reshape itself repeatedly. Continents drifted, oceans opened and closed, mass extinctions erased dominant species again and again. Through it all, the isopod remained, not unchanged, but adaptable. Evolution did not push it toward grandeur. It pushed it toward resilience. At first glance, the isopod appears simple. A flattened body, segmented armor, short legs moving in rhythmic coordination. Yet this simplicity is deceptive. Every segment serves a purpose. Every plate is protection. The exoskeleton shields against predators, dehydration, and physical damage. It is not designed to intimidate, but to endure pressure, literal and environmental. Unlike many crustaceans, isopods did not remain confined to the sea. Some ventured onto land, carrying with them a body plan meant for water. This transition demanded compromise. Gills, once bathed in seawater, now required moisture from soil and air. As a result, terrestrial isopods became creatures of shadow and dampness, avoiding sunlight not out of fear, but necessity. Movement is deliberate, not hurried. Speed is not their defense. Instead, isopods rely on concealment, armor, and in some species, the ability to curl into a near-perfect sphere. In that moment, vulnerability disappears. Soft tissue vanishes. What remains is a living shield. Feeding behavior reflects their role in the ecosystem. Isopods consume what others ignore: decaying plant matter, fallen leaves, rotting wood. They break down what is already dying, returning nutrients to the soil. This is not destruction. It is recycling at a biological level. Without them, decay would slow, and ecosystems would suffocate under their own waste. In aquatic environments, other isopod species evolved along darker paths. Some became scavengers of the deep sea, feeding on carcasses that sink into eternal darkness. Others adapted to parasitism, attaching themselves to fish, surviving where food is scarce and competition is ruthless. These forms are unsettling to human eyes, yet perfectly tuned to their environment. What unites all isopods is not appearance or habitat, but strategy. They do not compete with giants. They do not challenge apex predators. They occupy the overlooked spaces, the edges, the undersides, the forgotten layers of the world. This quiet existence is the greatest strength. As the planet changed, isopods followed the fractures. When oceans deepened and light disappeared, some lineages moved downward, adapting to pressure that would crush most life. In the abyss, where temperature remains near freezing and food arrives only as falling remains from the surface, giant isopods emerged. Their size is not excess. It is efficiency. A slower metabolism allows survival during long periods of starvation. Weeks become months. Months stretch into years. In this darkness, movement is sparse. Energy is conserved. When a carcass reaches the seafloor, giant isopods gather in silence, consuming rapidly before the resource disappears. Their armor protects them from both predators and the crushing weight of water. Every feature reflects patience rather than speed. On land, a different challenge exists. Terrestrial isopods must constantly manage moisture. The gills, evolved for water, demand humidity. This requirement shapes behavior. They emerge at night. They shelter beneath stones, bark, and soil. Darkness is not merely cover, it is survival. Sunlight dries, shade preserves. Their intelligence is subtle but real. Studies have shown that some isopods can learn, remember, and adapt their choices based on experience. They navigate microenvironments, selecting paths that maximize moisture and safety. This is not instinct alone. It is environmental awareness refined through repetition. Reproduction remains efficient and cautious. Females carry fertilized eggs in a brood pouch, protecting offspring during early development. Young isopods emerge as miniature versions of adults, already capable of independent movement. There is no dramatic metamorphosis. Growth is gradual, incremental, mirroring the species' evolutionary philosophy. Predators are numerous. Birds, reptiles, amphibians, mammals, all feed on isopods when given the chance. Yet predation rarely leads to collapse. High reproductive rates and low energy demands stabilize populations. Isopods do not dominate ecosystems, but they rarely vanish from them either. Their presence influences soil health in ways often unnoticed. By breaking down organic matter, they increase nutrient availability, improve soil structure, and support microbial life. In this role, they function as silent engineers. Ecosystems depend on processes like these far more than on visible drama. Human environments provide new territory. Gardens, basements, greenhouses, any space that mimics damp shelter becomes suitable habitat. Isopods are not pests in the traditional sense. They rarely damage living plants. Instead, they arrive to clean what is already decaying. Their appearance often signals excess moisture, not infestation. This relationship reveals something essential. Isopods do not force their way into systems. They respond. Where conditions align, they exist. Where they do not, they disappear. Their success is passive, not aggressive. Across land and sea, the pattern remains consistent. Isopods avoid extremes by adapting slowly and thoroughly. They trade speed for endurance, visibility for persistence. In a world defined by change, they remain quiet, armored, and patient. Human attention rarely settles on creatures like the isopod. They are too small to impress, too common to inspire, or too quiet to provoke fear. Yet this invisibility has been the greatest protection. While larger species rose and fell under the pressure of climate shifts, competition, and extinction events, isopods remained in the margins, where survival is decided not by dominance, but by consistency. In human-modified landscapes, isopods did not resist change. They adapted to it. Urban gardens, compost piles, damp foundations, and greenhouse floors replicate the same conditions they have sought for millions of years. Moisture, shelter, organic matter. Where these exist, isopods follow. Not as invaders, but as participants in an already altered system. This coexistence is largely misunderstood. Isopods are often mistaken for pests, blamed for damage they did not cause. In reality, their presence usually indicates decay already in progress. They arrive after the fact, accelerating a process nature would complete regardless. In doing so, they reduce waste, enrich soil, and sustain microscopic life that supports larger organisms. From a biological perspective, their success lies in restraint. Isopods consume slowly. They reproduce steadily. They do not exhaust their environment. This balance prevents boom and bust cycles that destabilize populations. It is a strategy refined over geological time, one that prioritizes survival over expansion. In the deep sea, where human influence is only beginning to reach, isopods continue to perform the same role. They recycle death into energy. They connect the surface world to the abyss, transforming fallen life into nutrients that sustain entire communities. Even in darkness, their function remains clear. The isopod offers no spectacle. There is no dramatic hunt, no visible struggle for dominance. Its story is told through persistence, through presence, through the quiet repetition of function carried out day after day, century after century. In an era defined by rapid change, the isopod stands as a counterpoint. It reminds us that survival does not always favor the fastest, the strongest, or the most intelligent. Sometimes, it favors the adaptable, the patient, the overlooked. Long after trends shift, climates warm, and systems collapse, creatures like the isopod are likely to remain. Not because they conquer environments, but because they fit into them without resistance. Beneath leaves, under stones, in the deep silence of the ocean floor, the isopod continues its work, unnoticed, uncelebrated, and indispensable.